Ever bought a projector that looked amazing on the product page, only to discover the picture looked dim, the focus was off, or the setup turned your living room into a hardware store? I've been there, spending a weekend wrestling with a short-throw lens, adjusting keystone, and still ending up with a screen that feels more like a blurry billboard than the cinematic experience you imagined. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and today I'm going to walk through why the BenQ TK710STi might be the one that finally gets it right, or why it could still leave you shaking your head. First off, let's talk about the problem most people face when they move from a TV to a projector: real-world brightness. The spec sheet proudly shouts 3200 ANSI lumens and laser light source, but what does that actually mean once the image is projected onto a wall that isn't a perfectly white screen? In my testing, the laser source does give the TK710STi a steadier output than traditional lamp-based units, and the 3200 lumen rating holds up in rooms with some ambient light. I set it up in a family room that has a couple of windows and a ceiling light on during the day, and the image stayed vivid enough to read subtitles without cranking the volume. That's a practical strength you won't see on a spec sheet. The laser really does maintain consistent brightness over time, so you're not fighting a dimming bulb after a few hundred hours. Now, the short throw factor is where the TK710STi tries to differentiate itself. Short throw means you can sit just a few feet away from the wall and still get a 100-inch image. For anyone with limited depth, say an apartment living room or a basement gaming den, that's a huge convenience. I placed the projector about 3.5 feet from a light grey wall, and it threw a clean 110-inch picture with minimal keystone correction. The lens shift is modest but workable. You can nudge the image up or down a few inches without moving the whole unit, which saved me from having to drill a ceiling mount. The trade-off, however, is that you need a very flat, light-colored surface. On a textured or dark-painted wall, the contrast suffered noticeably, and the black started to look more like a washed-out grey. So if you're planning on projecting onto a standard bedroom wall, you'll likely need to invest in a proper screen or at least a white matte paint. HDR support is another buzzword that gets tossed around a lot, and the TK710STi does claim HDR10 and HLG compatibility. In practice, the projector can display the wider color gamut, but the dynamic range isn't as dramatic as you'd see on a high-end OLED TV. When I ran a 4K HDR game of Forza Horizon, the colors popped, greens looked lush, and the sky blues were crisp, but the brightest highlights never quite blew out to the level of a dedicated HDR TV. It's still a respectable improvement over SDR, especially for gamers who want a more immersive feel without needing a separate HDR monitor. The lag-free gaming promise holds up too. Input lag measured at around 16 milliseconds, which is comfortably below the threshold most competitive players care about. The projector also offers a game mode that boosts the refresh rate to 120 Hz, making fast-paced shooters feel smoother on a large screen. Connectivity is where the TK710STi feels like an all-in-one entertainment hub. It packs two HDMI 2.0 ports, a USB-C for videoing, and a built-in speaker system that's decent for casual movie nights. I connected a PlayStation 5, a Nintendo Switch, and a streaming stick all at once, and switching between them was as simple as hitting the source button on the remote. The remote itself is a little cramped, but the on-screen menu is intuitive enough that you can tweak picture settings without diving into a dense manual. One practical weakness, though, is the lack of a true wireless HDMI option. If you're hoping to hide cables entirely, you'll still need a separate wireless transmitter, which adds to the overall cost. Speaking of cost, the TK710STi sits in the mid-range of laser projectors, more expensive than entry-level lamp models but far cheaper than the flagship 4K laser units that cost several $1,000s. The value comes from the combination of laser durability. BenQ rates the light source for up to 20,000 hours, the short-throw convenience, and the decent gaming performance. If you're a casual movie lover who just wants a big picture for occasional binge-watching, you could probably get away with a cheaper lamp-based projector and a screen. But if you plan to use the unit nightly, especially for gaming or sports where you want consistent brightness and low lag, the long-term savings on bulb replacements make the higher upfront price more justifiable. Who should buy the TK710STi? First, gamers who have a dedicated play area and don't want to sacrifice performance for size. The low input lag, 120 Hz support, and HDR capability make it a solid choice for console and PC gaming alike. Second, families that enjoy movie nights and have a wall that can be painted white or